The aim of the operation had been to remove Nasser, but in fact it was Anthony Eden who went. He resigned on health grounds in January 1957, though it's not clear for how long he could have continued, even if his health had been good. He was succeeded, ironically, by Harold Macmillan, though Macmillan's judgment had been even more in question than Eden's. He'd pressed for force, he'd pressed for collusion with the Israelis, he'd misinterpreted the views of Eisenhower to Eden, he'd failed to pass on a Treasury warning of the strains on sterling, had failed to take proper precautions to preserve the currency. But he was the beneficiary, so shows the eternal truth there's no real justice in politics. There was an ironic postscript. On the 3rd of November, in the middle of the operation, the American Deputy Director of Intelligence told the CIA representative in London, "Tell your friends to comply with the goddamn ceasefire or go ahead with the goddamn invasion. Either way, we'll back them up if they do it fast. What we can't stand is their goddamn hesitation." The CIA officer in London told the Joint Intelligence Committee in London, saying, "I'm not speaking without instructions." And that was an indication that Eden and Macmillan might have been right after all, that if it had been quick, the Americans might have turned a blind eye. And indeed, Dulles said to Eisenhower on 12th of November, "The British, having gone in, should not have stopped until they had toppled Nasser. As it was, they had now got the worst of both possible worlds. They had received all the onus of making the move and at the same time had not accomplished their major purpose." And then on 17th of November, just 11 days after the ceasefire, the British Foreign Secretary, Selwyn Lloyd, visited Dulles in hospital. He'd been hospitalised during the crisis. And Dulles asked, "Why did you stop? Why didn't you go through with it and get Nasser down?" And Lloyd said, "Why didn't you give us a wink?" And Dulles said, I think perfectly reasonably, "Well, I couldn't do that." But even if the Americans had turned a blind eye, the question remains, what could Britain and France do once they were in Egypt with another occupation against the wishes of the people? Some conservatives believe there was an alternative pro-British leadership available in Egypt. I think that was wishful thinking. Probably the British occupation would have met with terrorism and guerrilla warfare led by Nasser, whose position would have been strengthened. What could have been accomplished if the Suez operation had actually been successful? Perhaps that's the main argument against it. What could it have achieved?